The NFL has known about the concussion issue for years.
They're terrified of you. You're going to war with a corporation that owns a day of the week.
This is bigger than they are. They have to listen to us now.
Will Smith's controversial movie Concussion will be in theaters Christmas Day. Will Smith is already nominated for a Golden Globe for his role in this film. Stephen A. had all access with his fellow Philly guy. The two sat down in New York to discuss the movie and how it forever changed the way he viewed football as a fan and a parent. Here's Stephen A. and Will Smith.
First things first, why did you want to make this movie?
Well, first off, I did not want to make this film. You know, when I first read it, I was like, oh, man.
What was the apprehension?
You know, my son played football, and I, you know, I grew up in Philly. You know, I was getting battered by the Dallas Cowboys, watching Ron Jaworski and my Eagles get smashed. You know, so I had deep emotion, you know, connected to this game. And I didn't want to be that guy, you know? And then I met Dr. Omalu, and I sat with him, and when, you know, he told me his story, and he broke down the science, there was a moment when my heart jumped, because as a parent, I didn't know. And I had my son on the football field, and I didn't know the information. So to me, it felt like, you know, putting him in a car without any driving lessons. You know, so I felt like, as a parent, if I didn't know, I knew that other parents didn't know.
So when you put it that way, I guess the next question for me would be, not knowing, what was the emotion that came through your mind? Was it the people need to know? Was it frustration with a game that you loved that was the National Football League and saying as a parent, how do we not know this? What was the emotion going through your mind?
You know, it was, first it was frustration with myself, you know, that as a parent, it's my job to be informed. You know, it's like my kids are looking at me and they're trusting me that when I say something's cool, it's cool, you know? So it was frustration with myself, and then beyond that, in hearing Dr. Omalu's story, I actually got inspired in the way that he talked about America. You know, he's a Nigerian immigrant who has stars in his eyes about the American dream. So when he discovered this, he sort of rekindled for me the beauty of what this country is, and he kept saying, this is not how Americans are supposed to solve problems. So I got inspired about his story and telling his story to the world, you know, and the issue around it and the football of it is one thing, but on the other side of it, it's really about the truth and how we tell and accept the truth from one another.
In the throes of doing it, did you run into anything that diminished your inspiration? While doing it?
Well, it's really hard to diminish my inspiration. You know, I've said a few times, America's the only place that Will Smith would be allowed to exist. No other country is going to let me do what I do on the global level the way that I do it. So I'm proud when I sit my American passport down, you know. So I felt inspired that there were people who didn't necessarily want the information to be delivered the way we were delivering it, but I felt confident that the truth would override everything.
Any communication with the National Football League at all in the process of doing this film?
Yeah, no contact between the creative team and the NFL. I've had no personal contact. The director had no personal contact with the NFL.
Was that by their choice or yours?
It was
your creative team.
You know, I think it was mutual. You know, for us, there's a truth of what Dr. Omalu experienced that we didn't need anyone else to co-sign. You know, we when we were dealing with situations and scenes that were NFL-based or that were based on, other people, we were trying to go from transcripts as much as possible, and we were trying to be as careful as we could be with the artistic license that you have to take when you put a story together, but we took it very seriously. We shot in Pittsburgh. The members of the families were there, on the set a lot. So we worked hard to keep it real.
I want to read a quote to you from Dr. Omalu. He said in an article GQ printed 2009, I'm sure you read that. He said, quote, "I was naive. There are times I wish I never looked at Mike Webster's brain. It dragged me into worldly affairs that I do not want to be associated with. Human meanness, wickedness, selfishness, people trying to cover up, to control how information is released. I started this not knowing I was walking into a minefield. That is my only regret." That's what he felt as obviously the man who discovered CTE. Absolutely. How did you feel as the individual portraying the man who said that?
So I got into all of that, and as an actor, you have to understand what a person is thinking and feeling. Will Smith, maybe naively, I have to sort of create a world for myself where human meanness and covering up or hatred are curable with love and truth. Yes, people do bad things. I don't really believe in bad people, and I know that might be naive, but I believe very firmly that as we push forward with the truth, and if we can keep as much love in our hearts as possible, even for our enemies, that's the process of evolution that I'm proud that I believe this film does well.
You obviously loved the game of football.
Yeah.
Had your son playing football.
Yeah.
He was pretty good. Mm-hmm. He stopped playing after high school.
Right.
What's your love for football now that you've done all of this?
It's football is one of the most beautiful games and most beautiful sports you'll ever watch. It's the biggest, strongest, fastest, most powerful human bodies on earth, So that's never gonna not be beautiful. But by the same token, at the same time, it's dangerous in a way that at a minimum, the information and the reality and the science of what's happening has to be injected for the players to play the game in a way that maybe is different, maybe is not. But I want to be a part of delivering the information. I think what this film does is it takes something that's really complex and really complicated and something that hides in plain sight, and it makes it simple and digestible and comprehensible.
Getting a little bit away from the film, Dr. Omalu just recently wrote an article in the New York Times encouraging parents essentially not to let their kids play football. It's one thing for adults to play.
Absolutely.
Once we have the information, but kids shouldn't be exposed to it.
Right.
Where does Will Smith stand on that now that he has portrayed Dr. Omalu in this film?
Will Smith is not a doctor, so Will Smith would never be so arrogant as to think that he can make a medical recommendation for what parents should do. I don't want nobody telling me what I should do with my kids, so I am delivering the information as an artist. I studied it, and I think in my desire to be of service and make a contribution, I've created something that I think can be helpful in parents making decisions that are their decision, not mine. I would never step into that.
You've done a lot of great work throughout your illustrious career. Where does this rank, this film?
Yeah, this is absolutely a little bit of a turn for me. It's
Ain't Hitch, ain't Bad Boys.
There's none of that. None of that. Yeah, this is I've definitely made a shift to, I'm 47, so I need my contributions to be more potent. You know, I want the films. This film is funny. There are things about it that, you know, you get some good laughs. It's beautiful entertainment. It's great performances. And I think Hollywood and cinema at its best does all of those things, but then it can also be enlightening and it can also be informative. So this film fires on all of those cylinders, and I enjoy how that feels when I'm wearing that kind of artistry.
Congrats, all the best to you, and good
Appreciate
luck.
you.
Good luck to your Eagles.
Appreciate you. Hey, Caleb told me, you know, I had to say his name on TV.
That's right.
So
did you say it?
So that's my brother-in-law.
That's right. Say
you
say the full name.
For Caleb Pinkett. Caleb Pinkett.
We're good. Thanks a lot, bro.
Thank you, man. As always, watch your head.
Tremendous work by Stephen A., no surprise, and we're just getting started on this subject that greatly impacts a sport we all love. The fellows will discuss Stephen A.'s conversation with Will Smith on concussion when we return. Stay here. Welcome back into First Take. In case you're just joining us, Stephen A. sat down with Will Smith in New York to discuss his upcoming film, Concussion, which will be released on Christmas Day. Stephen A., this film obviously very controversial. Will Smith portrays Dr. Omalu, the pathologist who discovered CTE. What did you learn from sitting down with Will?
Well, what I learned just by sitting down with him and then talking to him after I'd interviewed him, is that obviously it was an incredible concern. It moved him as a parent of a football player. His son was playing high school sports and what have you. He just felt like the players need to know. You know, and that he believes that obviously America being the greatest country in the world, incredibly concerned about its citizens as well, you know, the National Football League in particular would then take the appropriate steps, you know, once the players were more well informed. And I think that what resonated with me is that it gave you the impression, and obviously, dare I say, the fact that a lot of players simply were not aware of the severity of these issues. They knew that these are the kind of things that were going on, but they weren't aware of the residual effects and the residual impact it could ultimately have on their life. And folks like Dr. Omalu, played by Will Smith, just obviously felt fervently that people needed to know, they had a right to know, and it's something that everybody needed to be aware of, to the point where it was illustrated visually for all eyes to see. When you see a guy like Mike Webster, who was the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the way that he's portrayed in the movie, Skip, going through what he went through before he ultimately died. Terry Long drinking antifreeze, Dave Dorson shooting himself. The list goes on and on. Mood swings, depression, homelessness, loss of memory, all of these different things. The movie, which obviously I saw the screening, it was a very good movie. Excellent performance by Will Smith, I have to say. It was just one of those things where we can read about it all day long, but when you visually see the kind of potential impact it can have, it's clearly very, very riveting. And Will Smith made it a point to tell me that numerous players have reached out to him, talking to him about how they can't wait to see this film. And obviously they're hearing that he did it justice. And I'm here to confirm, as a person who saw the movie, he most certainly did. It definitely made you take a step back. As fans of the NFL that we are, knowing how violent this game is, what comes with this. And as you would say on many occasions, Skip, you sign up for this, you know what you're getting into. The reality is this film sort of gives you the impression that maybe, just maybe, as much as you think you may know what you're getting into, you may not realize that. That's basically what I got.
I got it. I want to go two big directions with you. Let's start and stay with the great Will Smith. Obviously, this man is box office. This man is an extremely accomplished actor with a long resume who has remained extremely popular and crosses all lines. Black, white, name the color. Will Smith is popular, crossover popular. So when I first heard he had chosen to play this character in this movie, and this man says in the movie, this doctor, God did not intend for us to play football. As long as we do, men will die. Now that's a mouthful, man. And for Will Smith to willingly choose to play a doctor who is attacking the most popular sport in this country was surprising to me. And because Stephen A., I think most fans won't love it that Will chose to play this character. I could be wrong. Now, I hope he wins a whole bunch of awards for portraying this character because it has potential to win him awards. Whether it has potential to be big box office, I never can guess about these things. When I least expect it, some movie just takes off. As they say about Hollywood, nobody knows what's going to work or not. Maybe this will work, and God bless them, I hope it does. My gut feeling is that a lot of fans, even sophisticated fans, aren't really, really interested at the height of pro football season going to this movie and hearing all this. I think most fans know that this is all operating out there. It's not that they're just turning deaf ears to this. They get it, but it's part of the attraction of the game that it has obvious inherent risks and dangers to it. That's part of the appeal of pro football. You know that, and I know that. So back to Will's choice of playing this, he said many times as he gets older, as an artist, he'll choose more, edgier films to make people think, and he alluded to that. And by the way, your interview is sensational. That's the first time I heard it. It was riveting, start to finish. Great questions, right on time. Well done. But I wonder deep down if he fears there'll be a backlash of unpopularity because he chose to play this character in the big picture.
Well, let me say this to you. It's not that he doesn't care, but he doesn't worry about it, because he believes as an artist, you have to perform your art. You have to do the job.
Yep.
And I remember years ago, Will Smith told me this, and Denzel Washington confirmed it to me. Denzel Washington has a very, very popular statement. He says, do what you have to do, so eventually you can do what you want to do. Okay. There's a price that you pay in artistry that you have to perform in order to ultimately graduate to doing the things that you want to do. And when I bring that up, I bring it up because it seemed important to Will, talking to him privately as well as on camera. It seemed incredibly important to him that as much information as could be put out there was put out there. But he also went to the other side, Skip, and tirelessly pointed out that he loves the NFL, and his love for the NFL hasn't dissipated, not to mention the fact that he wanted to acknowledge that he knows, like everybody else knows, that the NFL have done some things to address its safety issues. So in the aftermath, or right before talking to Will Smith, I actually spoke to the NFL prior to the interview. And there's a couple of things that I want to point out here, Skip. I still got it in my email right now. It says here, in the past decade, this is from the NFL, in the past decade, the league has made 39 rules changes related to player health and safety. In addition to team medical staff, there are independent concussion specialists present on both sidelines at every single NFL game. With sideline technology, medical personnel have access to the electronic medical records of all players. Additionally, the medical timeout, a new change implemented this year, allows an independent athletic trainer in the press box to stop the game to have a player receive medical attention should they show signs of distress or disorientation. And by the way, in 2013, they launched a 4-year, $60 million collaboration with GE to advance concussion research, prevention, and diagnosis and treatment. So when you look at what the NFL has done in terms of making those steps, Will Smith was aware of it, but still felt compelled to do this film because that speaks to what they've done since the issue has come to light. What he wanted to highlight is still the potential residual impact, make sure it's illuminated, but also I think there was something inside of him that wanted to highlight the stress and duress that Dr. Amalu had to experience, because when he first came out with CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, when he first came out with it, You know, there was resistance. People called him a quack, said he didn't know what he was doing,
Yeah.
said his prognosis, his diagnosis was ridiculous, etc., etc. And so that's that underdog story that appeals to an artist,
It does.
along
I
with
agree.
the illumination of, wow,
Right.
we all need to know about this.
Right, and as you well know, if you look back at Will's resume, he will take chances on things that he likes that are going to make people think. I Am Legend, Pursuit of Happiness, and even all the way back, a bigger risk to me in a different way was Bagger Vance. So he will try things that you think, wow, that's not what I expect from Will Smith, but that's what I love and respect the most about Will Smith. Now,
Well, that's what makes him great.
that's correct. Okay, now back to this issue. Look, the best part about all this, about this film, about this new focus on concussions, is that we have new protocols to save the players from their fearless selves. That's the best thing that's happened, and that's a huge positive for this sport. But I think deep down, even though Will admits that he now would have second thoughts about letting his son play high school football, because he said, you know, all I ever worried about was spine or knee injuries, and now I'm worried more about the head. Even though he says that, he also says that the upshot is we can now make football better. And I don't think he wants us to do away with football the way
He doesn't.
The film comes across like at some points Dr. Amalu wants to just do away with football. Well, that's not going to play well in this country, obviously. Okay?
But that's not.
Now-
But unfortunately, they're not going to care much about what Dr. Malu says, more so than they'll care about what Will Smith is saying. And Will Smith is saying that's absolutely not what he feels.
Okay,
he still loves football, and he wants you to love football.
Okay, now my personal reflection on all this. I've been covering this league for 40 years. I have known hundreds of ex-players and stay in touch with many of them. I should probably have more sympathy for their plights, but I don't, because they were all pretty smart to very smart individuals. And trust me on this, Stephen A. Smith. They knew they were playing a high-risk game, because clearly you'd have to be a fool, be an idiot, be an imbecile to not think that if I'm a great athlete and a big man and I'm running as fast as I can head on into another man, something could go wrong, right? I mean, they knew that they would have symptoms. They'd be seeing stars for days. They've had headaches for days. So again, these studies have brought to the forefront, oh, wow, this could really go off the tracks at some point if you don't watch it, although I do think that's slightly exaggerated. But do we need to go?
Yeah,
okay,
we
you're
do.
giving me the sign. I'm right in the middle of the story, so, but let's just stop, I guess. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, I was
guys.
interested in hearing more
No,
from you, Skip.
I
I was interested in hearing
I
more.
want to hear more too, and we'll get into it next. Stephen A., this is a bigger issue than sports. We appreciate you sitting down. Wonderful work by you, and Skip, we'll get the rest of your story later. Sorry that had to get interrupted. Later on, former Steeler and friend of the show, Ryan Clark, joins us with his perspective on the concussion issue. Ryan is an executive committee member of the NFLPA. We're looking forward to his insight. Ryan will also be with us for our next combo, weighing in on Odell Beckham being suspended one game, more fallout and details from Sunday's matchup and the matchup within the matchup when we come back.